Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Lyn Likes. I'm here at the Graves Library, and once a month I get to sit down and talk to all of you about something that I really like in literacy. I know over the past couple of months I've talked about unique language. I've talked about realistic artwork with animals with Jim Arnosky, and today I am here to talk to you about poetry. Yes, poetry is rhyming, but not always. And I know that we have a full collection of books here at the Graves Library upstairs where there are plenty of books on poetry. But I selected just a few so I could talk to you about some of the things that I liked when I was digging around in our books. And one thing that really captures my attention in poetry is how smooth and unique the language can be. When I'm reading poetry, I feel almost like I'm ice skating. The flow just carries me right through the poem that is rhyming or sometimes not rhyming. And I love to look at poetry on nature and animals. And I have several books here that we're going to look at. And I also have one on wintertime with poetry. And I think that words in poetry really speak to my heart. They are words that can make me feel all kinds of good feelings or sad feelings. They can bring a memory back for me of maybe a time when I might have been with my mother or my grandparent. And I think that sometimes poetry is often overlooked. We love our picture books, we love our rhyme, and really can dig deep into those books. And I hope that someday, when you're here at the Graves Library, you can dig deep into the books we have for poetry. So the first book I'm going to share with you today is called The Salt Marsh. And I chose this book off the shelf because I love the size of it. And it's poetry. I know. Books have to feel right in my hand when I pick them up. So this one is written by Virginia Schoenberg, and our publisher is William Morrow and Company in New York. So a special thank you to them. Virginia wrote this book many years ago, and you can see she also illustrated the birds and all the other animals that come to us in a salt marsh and enjoy being outside. And I've put a little marker here because I thought you might like to hear one of her poems, one that I really liked. I happen to live near a salt marsh. I live in the town of Wells, and my house isn't far from the big marsh you have to cross before you get to the beach. So this poem here is called Wing Blackbird. Deep in the tall reeds lies... I'm going to start over again. Wing Blackbird. Deep in the tall reeds lies the sedge-grass nest, safe for the greenery eggs. The redwing hovers near, scarlet shoulders in the sun. The swamp blackbird sings his bog song. Oakley, Oakley, Oakley. Would you like to say that with me? Okay, here we go. Oakley, Oakley, Oakley. Our red-winged blackbirds in the salt marsh. I'm going to show you another page here. Our author and illustrator, Virginia Schoenberg, has done a great rendering of seagulls. How many of you see seagulls at the beach when you take a drive by or sit in the sand? I see lots of nodding heads. I do too. They are everywhere down by the ocean and the salt marsh. Okay, another book that I found here on the shelves at Graves is called Peacock. Again, I like the size. It's a smaller size, and it fits perfectly in my hand. So I'm hoping someday that when you come in, you can try holding one of these poetry books and see if it feels right for you to take home and read. This one is written by Valerie Worth. It's called Peacock and Other Poems. Let's see if we can... And it's published by Farrar, Straus, and Giroux of New York. Something else I noticed about this poetry book is it has a table of contents. So you can open up a poetry book and you can find the word panda and the number 23. that tells me to go to page 23. So in this book, this author has numbered all of the pages right down here. So if you're looking for a specific poem, you can find it right away. I found one. Yes, I like to use sticky notes when I'm marking my place in a book. I didn't have a handy bookmark at the moment, but they work pretty well. This one is called Geraniums. And geraniums are a beautiful red, pink, white flower that blooms usually in the summertime in flower pots on people's decks or front steps. We actually have a beautiful pot of geraniums in Miss Terry's room. So next time you're in, you'll have to check it out. It's doing beautifully by the big window. Geraniums. The shore cottage that I like best has cracked steps, a patched screen door, and 2 concrete urns crammed with geraniums. I like this poem because it reminds me of our summer cottage in Wells. We have an old shore cottage that has cracked steps and creaks when you enter it. And it has a screen door that slams shut every time we go in and out. And it also has a big pot on the steps crammed with geraniums. Okay. Another book that I found on the shelf here is Jack Prelutsky's book of poems called It's Snowing, It's Snowing. The pictures are by Jean Titherington, and it was published by Green Willow Books of New York. Let me show you the title page. I opened up this book of poetry and I saw this illustration of this young boy tossing his winter cap up in the air, and it just made me smile. Like I mentioned earlier, poetry really evokes so many feelings from a person. And this one made me smile and think, I need to go out and play in the snow. This book of poems also has a table of contents. You can see that there's a title of the poem and a page number in which to find what you're looking for. If you had a poem that you wanted to read about skating or butterflies or bundling up or seeing snowflakes. So the poem that I wanted to read is called A Snowflake Fell. And the unique thing about poetry books is that every couple of pages, and I'll show you more of Mr. Prelutsky's book, is it has a title of the piece of poetry that was written. And yes, sometimes poetry isn't very long, but the words that are used really make you feel something right in your heart. A snowflake fell. A snowflake fell into my hand, a tiny, fragile gem, a frosty crystal flowerlet with petals but no stem. I wondered at the beauty of its intricate design. I breathed. The snowflake vanished, but for moments it was mine. This particular poem, maybe some of you already noticed, has a rhyme to it. The word design and mine rhyme. The other poetry I read you that doesn't. And that's what another great thing about poetry is it can be rhyming or it can be prose that just flows like you're ice skating around and around. I like that one. All right, let's see. We have, I'm just going to show you some of the illustrations. Here's one called December Days Are Short. And let's see. This one's called I'm Freezing. We have several of Jack Prelutsky's books here on the shelf, and they never cease to amaze me at what a poet he was, what a rhyming, just all the rhymes that he was able to think and put down to paper. And they're a lot of fun to read. Okay, something else that I like, this book, I thought the title was hilarious. Wait till you see this. Okay, here we go. A whiff of pine and a hint of skunk. I know, it made me smile when I saw it. A whiff of pine, a hint of skunk. Written by Deborah Rodell. Look at those end papers. Just fabulous. The illustrator of this book is Joan Rankin. And she's quite an illustrator, isn't she? A whiff of pine, a hint of skunk. Who do you see walking off the page? Just that little backside and a tail. Mr. Skunk. And here we get to see him again. He's going for a walk. So in this book as well, we have what's called a forest of poems. And it's a table of contents without pages, but it does list the variety of animals that the author wrote about with her poetry. Chipmunks, badgers, opossums, skunk. So let's see. Our first poem is called Eau de Forest, a woodsy cologne. Do some of you know what cologne is? Maybe, maybe not. It's a type of perfume. It's spider webs and dogwood trees, a muddy trail, a blue-green breeze, a nest, a leaf, a sycamore trunk, a whiff of pine, a hint of skunk. And when I turn the page, there's a brand new poem over here and one over here. So that's kind of magical about poetry too. It can be a story, it can be a rhyming story and carry you from page to page with a plot and a theme, or it can be a book of simple, short poems, like this book here. All right, let's see what we found here. This poem is called The Night Owl. Somewhere in the forest, he is practicing his hoot. But you'd swear that he's rehearsing on a spooky-sounding flute, working on his timing and his quivering technique, patiently perfecting the position of his beak. And I'm going to show you the back cover. Look at this. Look at this creature right here who's sniffing those nose up in the air, looking at those hearts, feeling good about himself. A whiff of pine, a hint of skunk. I like this one. This one was one of my favorites. All right, so the last book I picked up off the shelf, but it's not the last that we have. We have many to choose from. This one's called Animal Tracks, Wild Poems to Read Aloud. Looks good. It's written by Charles Gigna and illustrated by John Spears. And it's published by Harry Abrams Incorporated. And I'll show you the end papers because I know that's what we do when we have our reading. Hippos at the beach. Look at those tracks in the sand. Okay, so again, we have a book of poems. I'll show you just a sample page. Or this one is about a lion and his many friends. And when I turn the page, I find that I'm looking at many different animals. A goat, an armadillo, and a bull. Oh, and a badger. There's a badger. All right, let's see. I think I can find the page that I... What about this page? It's a double spread of illustrations. The illustrations flow over 2 pages, and we're at the beach. I feel like we've come right back around to the salt marsh when I first started talking to all of you. This is called Seagulls. No one knows the reason why, but when you look them in the eye, seagulls turn and wave goodbye. Unless you have an Oreo and hold it up on tippy toe, that's when they turn and wave hello. Does that happen to any of you when you go down to the beach? If you're sitting in the sand and the seagulls hear the crackle of the potato chip bag, and they come flying right in and they tip their head and they give you that side eye, thinking, I wonder if they'll share. I think that's what they were thinking when they swooped in for that Oreo cookie. And I'll just show you one more spread, very colorful, lots of artistic talent there. And this one is a snowy day in the Everglades. And what does a hound dog do all day? So poetry can be focused on so many different topics. It can be about animal tracks in the snow, at the beach, at the sand. Poetry can be about animals. I'm going to show you the whiff of pine and hint of skunk one more time. There you go. It can also be about the salt marsh with very simple drawings and yet very lovely language. I'm looking here because I wanted to see if I could read. Here's one. We'll read the last one before I say goodbye. The tall one. Away across the cove he stood, still, tall, waiting. The great blue heron watched and waited for the small fish, for the flash in the shadow. Have any of you seen a great blue heron as you've traveled to the beach or across the salt marsh, if you've had that opportunity? I have. I've seen several of them. I actually had one fly by my house. I know, they're enormous birds, and they do love their salt marsh, where they can find all the food that they need to stay healthy. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for the monthly edition of LYN Likes. And next month, we're going to be talking about counting books and many, many books that help us look at numbers in different ways. So I hope you'll join me then. I look forward to being back here with you. And until then, enjoy your day. Happy reading. And if you happen to be in the area of Graves Library, I'd love to have you come in and take a look at all of these terrific books of poetry that we have on the shelf upstairs. So until next time, take care, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.